Start by introducing myself. I am Nada Shabout, and I am, as I am being presented here, a curator at Dubai Modern. I'm also an academic. I would like to thank all of you for being here, and I'd like to thank everyone who's been involved in making this beautiful book. And of course, a special thank to actually Jewad Selim's daughters who are not here at the moment with us, Zainab and Maryam, for sharing their wealth of information and material, stories and archives, working with Nima, who is the co-editor of the book with Zainab Selim. Many of you here know who Jewad Selim is and how important he was for Iraqi modernism and in the region as a whole because of his experiments. We know a lot of stories, we've read a lot of essays on him, but to be honest, you know...
Yeah, sorry, you can try and sit on the stools maybe. Sorry for...
Oh yeah, those uncomfortable stools. Feel free to sit on them. So many of us know Jewad on different levels, but of course, do we really know much about Jewad? Because there has been just these kind of snippets of information and material. Thankful to Ibrahim for and for the Selim family, Nazar Selim, for example, for writing about him. But this book, which is a labor of love, I know it's a labor of a lot of love, is a way for us to get to know the artist in a very different way. It allows us for a better understanding, and at a time when catalogue raisonnés are not really that popular anymore, but they are extremely difficult to make and really important for the history of art. So what I want to do now, I'm just going to introduce our great speakers here, and then we'll have a conversation between us, and hopefully then we'll have you as part of that conversation. I first start by introducing Dr. Hasanain Al-Ibrahimy, who is a physician by training and a businessman, but his journey with art began over 25 years ago in Baghdad around 2001, when he bought 2 paintings by Hafid al-Drubi and 2 sketches by Jewad Selim, a few other works that he hung in his office, in his company, in offices in the company. And then he got hooked after 2003 when he sponsored a retrospective exhibition of Shakir Hassan Said in Amman, and he purchased 13 pieces. And then before the 2003 occupation of Iraq, he owned approximately 50 pieces of artwork. But after the occupation, his obsession or love for art became a mission. And now he owns, I don't know how many, but a lot, with 2 centers, one in Amman and one in Baghdad, which actually operates like a museum for the lack of having a museum in Baghdad. So it became an important, the collection, the Ibrahimi Collection, becomes a very important private museum that safeguards the cultural and social contribution to Iraqi people, as well as for scholars. The Ibrahimi Collection also have been collecting all kinds of information about Iraqi art, and it's a major source for research for all of us. Thank you. Nima Sagharchi is the director of modern contemporary Middle Eastern and Islamic and South Asian art at Bonhams Auctioneers. With nearly 2 decades of experience in his field, Nima was among the first to help develop the market of Middle Eastern modernism at international auction. In 2008, he co-curated a Conference of the Birds, a landmark exhibition of Iranian modern and contemporary art in London. He has lectured widely on Middle Eastern art at venues including Aga Khan Foundation, SOAS, Sotheby's Institute in Art, and others. And he has been writing on the arts of a number of artists as well. And I have known Nima and collaborated with him on many other projects in the past. So grateful for you guys to be here. So happy we have the book, and the book is available at the Jamil bookstore in the fair. So I want to start by talking about, to you, Dr. Hasanain, as a collector, tell us a little bit about the importance of Jawad, and how did you help in the process of gathering material for this book? And particularly works that were in Iraq. I mean, to do a catalogue raisonné for any Iraqi artist at the moment after the destruction of art and heritage in Iraq following 2003 is a major task, a very tiring, actually, process. So tell us a little bit about why Jewad Selim. How did you, sort of help, and why did you think it was important to be involved in this work?
I think the importance of Jewad Selim, it goes without mentioning, and all the art historians, when they care about the Middle Eastern art and the Arabic art, and in particular the Iraqi art, they know the pivotal position of Jawad through his age and the creativity and the innovation that he did while he implemented the Istilham al-Turath, or the inspiration of the heritage, trying to inspire the ancient motive of the Mesopotamian and Islamic art to the modern vocabulary. And due to his different places of studying, like he studied in Baghdad, then he completed his part of his study in Rome, then in Paris before the Second World War, then he went to slave school, graduated from slave school, working in the Iraqi Museum for the archaeology, with the archaeologists restorating the masterpieces of the Iraqi antiquities. He gets so influenced by the heritage of Iraq, I would say, and his intention and his mission, I would say, that always inspired him is to create a unique Iraqi style, inspiring the heritage and with a modern and contemporary language. So this is the importance of...
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. Jewad Selim becomes an important figure in the path of where Iraqi art went. And then particularly even till today. Well, Nima, what got you involved in this book?
Thank you for the introductions, and thank you for everyone for being here. So yeah, it was a combination of things that led to this book being produced. As I said in the London talk, the primary motivation at the beginning was professional jealousy, because we work in an auction house where the departments that we sit with, like the Impressionist, the Modern department, the Contemporary department, have access to huge reservoir of resources on artists, on movements, and they're extremely well stocked in the way that they can tap into references when it comes to certain artists. When it comes to a catalogue raisonnés, the people that sit next to us, the Impressionist department, all they have to do is open their wardrobes, and they've got the cat res of every single artist, split into time periods, sometimes in 5 or 6 volumes. And in the Middle Eastern field, unfortunately, for various reasons, regional turmoil, the lack of scholarship during the time the artists were alive, and the lack of resources at the time, we don't have the same kind of resources. So I love Jewad Selim, I loved his work, it resonated with me, but I noticed that access to primary resources was something that was slowly dying. And it's sad to say it, but it was dying because people were dying. When I first started at Bonhams in 2014, and we had works by Jewad, we would bring his wife Lorna in, who was in her 90s, we would sit and speak to her, and it was incredible to have that one-on-one experience. But obviously Lorna's passed away, Jewad Selim's daughters are of an age that, you know, in I don't know, a decade or 2 decades, they may not be around, and this problem is being suffered across the field when it comes to this specific period of the development of modernism. And I thought it's such a shame for this generation to pass away without having extracted the necessary information from them and essentially kept it in a form by which it can be accessed for all generations. So from that perspective, it was about making a time capsule, and from this perspective of why Jawad, I'm Iranian myself, so I came into the Middle Eastern art field with a very pro-Iranian stance on modern art. And then I came across Jewad, and for me, as someone that was born in the UK, I totally understood what Jewad was doing, in the sense that he was trying to create this dual identity of international and local, but without a sense of frustration. Because I think in the Middle East, at certain points in time, there has been a question asked of people of how do we deal with Western dominance in the cultural or political sphere? Are we a scowl and say, okay, we're importing everything from the West? Do we try and fight it, or do we ignore it? And Jawad's answer, I think, was the best answer. And it's an answer that translates through to art, personal identity, civic identity, and it's basically to take the best of both and fuse them harmoniously, which is exactly what he did. Non-secular, Hasanain as an Iraqi will understand the value of what Jewad did. You look at his work, it's not secular, it's not religious, it's not tribal, it's very pure. And I actually thought this morning, what would Jewad think of a place like Dubai? And I thought he would probably find it very interesting, because that's exactly what his work was trying to work around. It's like, how do I combine the local and the international without losing the potency of either? And it reminded me that actually Frank Lloyd Wright, the famous American architect, had a plan for Greater Baghdad that didn't look so dissimilar to what Dubai looks like now. And when he came to Iraq in 1957, it was Jawad that showed him round. So there are these interesting interactions that, for me, show that Jawad was very enlightened and saw beyond his borders, and that for me is why he's such an interesting artist.
I mean, he was such at ease with his time that he did not really necessarily think about that conflict or tension between the local and the international. He thought of it all as, it's heritage, it's humanity's heritage. And it helped a lot that the fact that when he went to the Louvre or the British Museum, he actually did see his heritage. And so he understood that his heritage was impacting the international as well. Well, so a Catalogue Raisonné, but that's not your typical book, because this is a lot of work and a lot of images to chase, a lot of factual material to chase, but also low-res images or stolen works or lost works, and both of you, were very much involved in trying to do that. So let's talk a little bit about, Dr. Hasanain, your role. How were you able to help with collecting the material? I mean, Jawad left us a lot of material, and his daughters, at least Zainab, has done a great job in sort of organizing the archives, but there was a lot of missing links and a lot of filling in the gaps that you guys, you and Zainab had to do, but Dr. Hasanain, you aided as well in doing that.
Indeed, the daughters of Jewad Selim, they were very much depending on the archive that had been collected by Lorna Selim. And as we know that Lorna, she was with Jawad since 1950 when he was in slave school. And the archive that she collected was so abundant and important, and it represents maybe the core, the important core of the archive of Jawad. What was missing in regard of the images still present in Iraq, and Nima and Zainab, they asked me if we can have the access to the Iraqi Museum of Modern Art and some collectors who they have these artworks, and through our network in Iraq we could arrange special approvals to photo with high-res all the artworks in the museum and send it to Nima and Zainab as well. And then we kept following, and then we discovered two important murals Jawad he did at 1956. Both of them, they are about 6.5 by almost 4 meter from the ceramic. It was really a great discovery, installed in a house in Al-Amirat street in Baghdad to the son of Fattah Pasha. Farouk Fattah Pasha. He was Farouk Fattah Pasha was a very close friend of Jawad at that time. It seems that Farouk, he wanted to build his house, and he commissioned Jawad to build these two murals, amazing mural, represent very much his mature style of Baghdadiyat, that he merged the heritage and the Baghdadi school with abstract forms and with minimalism, and he implemented in the ceramic. Yeah.
They're beautiful. I mean, you know, I'm sure there are a lot of stories of like this, right? Finding new things or searching for things that maybe you didn't find, because we know of stories, we know of works that toured, for example, in the US, yet we don't really necessarily have access to all of them. So before you share some of those stories, Nima, do you think this book is 90% sort of inclusive of what Jewad has produced? There are no sketches in here, but in paintings. Do you think there are some paintings perhaps that are still at large?
Look, there were mixed emotions when producing this book, because there were so many paintings that were lost completely. So for instance, so the painting behind Jewad there, which was both paintings behind Jewad there were exhibited in New York, Pittsburgh, Washington in 1953. I mean, it's an incredible feat that he did a tour of America in the early 50s and sold to major American collectors, but then they've disappeared over time, because obviously at the time, you know, the collectors didn't necessarily understand their value, and over generations they've just become dispersed. Luckily, we have photographs of most of the missing paintings, so we can piece together the jigsaw. But I spent, you know, evenings on Facebook, on LinkedIn, even on Instagram, trying to speak to the great-grandchildren of people that bought paintings in the 50s, reading obituaries. It got a bit, you know, kind of rabbit holey at some point. And there were some that I just couldn't find, like the one behind Jewad, the flight into Egypt, which is such a major painting, has just completely disappeared. Luckily, we had situations in which we could, using artificial intelligence, and during the production of the book, AI was kind of just becoming a thing in terms of image generation and stuff. So we took very, very poor images like this and then refined them to create that on the right, which is really incredible. So that's both colorized and refined. There are still some works that we only have titles of that have truly disappeared. It's really sad. But in a way, it makes Jewad's work more precious, because what has survived is so much more special. And because his output was relatively low. If you think between his mature period, between 1950 and 1958, he did maybe only 3 or 4 paintings a year, and the same amount of sculptures a year. So every work has so much of his attention and so much of his thought process in it. So from that perspective, it was very rewarding. And yes, it is quite sad when you're dealing with an artist who, you know, a lot of their work is lost or stolen or looted. This is another work where we actually had it colorized with artificial intelligence. It's a garden seat made of limestone, also lost, and it was beautifully colorized. So we were lucky that technology was catching up to our ambitions at the same time. If we'd done this book 6 or 7 years ago, you wouldn't have had a lot of these pictures available.
That's really true. How long did it take making the book? I remember when we first talked to you about it, but yeah.
It took quite a while. Yeah. I mean, if I didn't have a job, it probably would have been quicker. But I had to,
yeah.
I have a job and I have kids as well. So my daughter's just there. So there was a lot of juggling to be done. And one thing I would also add as well, which I spoke to Hasanain about, Jewad's Freedom Monument. When I first started, writing the book, I contacted a few people in Iraq and said, okay, let me, like Diazawi, like Hasanain said, can I get some good pictures of the Freedom Monument? And they said there are no good pictures of the Freedom Monument, and I couldn't believe it. The equivalent of, imagine telling someone that there are no good pictures of the Arc de Triomphe or Nelson's column.
But it's difficult to photograph it, right?
It is
because,
difficult to photograph
it's big and it's high, and so everybody used the Latif al-Ani's
yes, the black and white one.
Yes, black and white one. Yes.
But we photographed it. We found someone that was very brave, that went at 6 in the morning that bribed some local police officers and told them to look away and basically took photographs of it. So that's the only way to do it.
Yeah, of Beit Tarkib. So, because she actually also photographed it in 2016.
Yes.
So she has the before and after the renovation images, which is great. It was great that able to sort of update some of these.
And to see it in detail, because it's lost from afar. It's the amount of detail in it is unbelievable.
Yeah. But so chasing the works, right? And then there are other issues like the looted works that are the fakes. I mean, the Iraqi art market is plagued with these issues. How did you deal with these situations?
Yes, it's really one of our biggest challenge, not only for Jawad, but for most of the founders and pioneers artworks, especially when they are passed away, and in particular whom they don't have a state of artist they are following and collecting their archive, like Frank Hassan, for example, which is the second important artist in the Iraqi modern art, but yet there is no state of the artist so far. What we try to do indeed is to create our own technique, our own approach through the publishings that have been published by the Ministry of Culture and even before the Ministry of Irshad Information, and then trying to get the help of the experts who are still alive, the employees of the museums, the managers, the experts whom they were working in the restoration. They were responsible about the warehouse of the artworks, whom they know the national collection. For each artwork that's in doubt, we will do a sort of due diligence, collecting all the information around, trying to gather them, analyze them, and find out with the experts, cross-matching with the museum themselves, as well as the ex-experts in the museum, to find out where we are in regard of this artwork. And I think we succeeded with almost 90–95% of that. And we are sure now about the artwork of Jawad. Most of the artwork that mentioned, it's belong to the national property. It is the national property, or it belongs to the private collection. It belongs to the private collection, and one that it's missed. So it's missing. It's not easy to find, and the story is repeated with all other artists. We lost the tracking of their provenance somehow.
And one of the issues with Jawad is that he passed away in 1961, and his daughters Anne Lorna came to the United Kingdom. So they had been disconnected from Iraq for a very long time, and they would be shown fake artworks by people. Unfortunately, there is a big industry of forgeries in the Middle East. They'll be shown fake artworks by people, and they would say, this is not by our father, and they would be offered money to validate it. So they say, okay, you know what, it's not by your father, but I'll give you 50% of the sale price. And they would say, no, it's still not by our father. So there was a lot of danger and a lot of traps in the process of authentication. The one good thing that Jawad had is that there is a secret weapon, which is 2 months before he died, Jawad made a handwritten list of almost all of his artworks. We couldn't publish it in the Cat Res because it names the people that bought them and their addresses, but it's a handwritten list of almost everything he did and its location at the time. So we had some...
It's amazing.
Yeah, we had like a spinal cord to go by, but it was difficult. I mean, there was a work, for instance, that we saw in 2021, this one, which was unsigned, and the family had no idea about it. They said, we've never seen this before, we've never heard of it. It looks like Jawad's work, but we just don't know. But through a process of combining family notes, it came from the family of one of the early prime ministers of Iraq, Nizar Ali Jawdat. And his wife Ellen had actually written in her diaries that Jawad designed this to eventually be a mural at the Iraqi Red Crescent Society, and he gifted it to us. And obviously because it was a maquette for a mural, it wasn't signed. So in that case, the family said, well, it's doubtlessly authentic. It ended up selling for $1 million, making it the most expensive Iraqi modern art solid auction. It then went to the Dulul collection in Beirut. It was exhibited at the Institut de Mon Arabe in a show dedicated to the Picasso-inspiring artists from the Middle East. So it's amazing. This came out.
And it will be exhibited in my exhibition at the bar.
That's going to be at your show. Amazing. So yeah, we've basically resurrected a painting that was lost even to Jawad's family, which is basically one of the most rewarding things about this project.
And even the contacting some of the sons of people who Jawad had done portraits for or painting for. Jawad did a lot of portraits for friends and for his students, many of his students. That was actually fun, just trying to contact people and say, did you inherit from your father a work like
And you know what, Nada, you experienced it as well in London, is that this was like a kind of big reunion of the Iraqi community, which had become very dispersed, but there were like high school friends meeting at the book launch in London that hadn't seen each other in decades. The owners of the Jawad works, which actually Nada introduced to us, were very good friends with the owners of another set of works they were the Madloum family. They had gone to school together and they hadn't seen each other for like 40 years, and they met up through this project, and they both ended up being donors to the book. So it's kind of weirdly, Jawad has brought people back together purely on like a social, and people from the Middle East will understand this kind of just, countries that have gone through revolution, through civil war, how people just become fragmented and then don't necessarily ever follow up with each other.
And Jawad can unite the Iraqis, right? More than anyone else. Actually, it was quite interesting to walk in this room and see these albums by a musician and artist who is here, Faraj, he's right here. And he will actually be talking at 7, right? You have a talk at 7. And he's used a Jewad Selim image for his album.
Where did you find it? I mean, how did you come across the painting, just out of interest?
Yes, so there's a...
I think take him on.
Hi everyone, I'm Faraj Abiyad, and I'm a composer and singer. I play the oud and I compose traditional Arabic music. And for my first album, I was honored to grace the cover of the album with this rare painting of Jewad Selim. And I was able to get this painting. It's the first time it was ever seen in color on my album. And it was in the Museum of the Orient in Moscow, I believe. And a researcher and dear friend named Olga Navidova helped us to get the high-res image of this. And it was printed 2 years ago on the cover of my album. And this synergy between my music and this album cover is really beautiful because it, just like Jewad Selim's art, touches on the ancient Baghdadi styles of art, but also it perpetuates it into the future with modern techniques. So too my music. It appreciates the turath of Syria and Iraq in the music, but also modern compositional techniques. So it's a very nice marriage between the artwork and the music. So,
by the way, if you allow me, Nada, this painting name is Majlis al-Khalifa. This have been exhibited as a not donation, but as it's linked to the museum of the Oriental Museum in Soviet Union, in Moscow. And then the Ministry of Culture in the Soviet Union at that time, he asked our ambassador that we like this artwork. He said, okay, we're gonna donate it to you. And then it have been donated. And since then, it is in Moscow. It's one of the masterpieces of Jawad indeed.
Absolutely, and really speaks to Istilham al-Turath and the connection with the Baghdad School of Painting. Yes. Oh wow. Okay. Absolutely beautiful. Thank you. And thank you. Well, actually, Dr. Hasanain, since you have the mic, we might as well would like to talk about the process that you implemented in trying to help and assist in the documentation of this book. So
Yes.
Yes.
Next, please.
I'll give
okay.
a review.
Do you want me to do it, or do you want to do it backwards? Yeah. So I do it as a forwards. Forwards.
It's not working.
This is backwards.
Yeah.
This is a very brief presentation, briefing and summarizing the Catalogue Raisonné.
This is forwards.
Okay. So we tried to track the artworks in the Catalogue Raisonné, and it's clear there were about 111 paintings published in the Catalogue Raisonné with different styles of Jawad. The personal portraits have been created, about 37 personal portraits created between the 30s and 50s, still life, 2 paintings, landscape, about 20, expression, 15, cubism, 1, and Baghdadiyat, which is the style of Jawad that settled on in the 50s, and it was one of the most important style that monographed the Iraqi or the Baghdadi modern art school. For the sculptures, there were about 60 sculptures, classic personal buste about 19, between 30s and 50s, and modern figurative sculptures about 32, also have been created between 30s until 50s, and 9 abstract sculptures. These are samples of the personal portraits created by Jawad in different period of time.
And you, the first one is yours. His earliest painting is in your collection.
Right.
I think he did it when he was, he was
13.
13 years old.
Yeah. I think this, according to the family, it had been created in the 30s, and I guess he was 20 years old. And he was a member in the Association of Friends of Art that head by Akram Shukri and Abdul Qadir Rassam. We know that Abdul Qadir Rassam, he is one of the first founders of the modern art movement in Iraq. He taught Jewad Selim unofficially how he can use the oil, how he can prepare the painting before he went to Rome.
And just to briefly interrupt, the reason that his early paintings were copies are that him and his friends, when they were 12, 13, would go to the market in Baghdad and they would buy Western magazines from a Jewish magazine trader. That he's actually written this in his diaries. He would supply them with postcards and magazines, and they'd go home and copy it in their spare time. So this wasn't formal artistic education.
Exactly.
This was a guy that had incredible talent. The first one is a Fragonard painting that he's copied.
Right.
That he's taking home little postcards and copying them at home as a teenager, which I think is pretty impressive.
Indeed, these two paintings are copied. I go here. But the others are portraits for the social network of Jawad. This is for Akram Shukri, this is for the landlady that Jawad usually living with in UK, and this lady, I think in UK in 1949, and this is May Arif Kaftan, a friend of Jawad. This is also an example of the landscape, or still life, sorry, of paintings that published in the Catalogue Raisonné have been authenticated by the family. And these are also another examples of the 40s, 50s landscapes created by Jawad between, I would say, 40s and 50s. Here we can see the normal style that any painter can do, trying to inspiring the Western styles, there is nothing about the motto of Baghdad group of Istilham al-Turath. And then Jawad started to change his style a bit through these paintings. Most of the paintings have been donated or presented to his friends free of charge. It's well known that Jawad, he was not selling a lot of his painting, and he was giving gifts, and he was living his life in a very difficult situation, materially, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely, you know, started by experimenting in different styles that he was seeing and copying, like any other art student would do, and then, you know, as he was teaching. And it was, you know, not until he went through a process and being part of the Society Primitive with Fayed Hassan was essential for him to understand the move, and then, of course, you know, working with Saad al-Husari in the Museum of Antiquity, where he was really studying the ancient works of Sumerian and Assyrian.
And Hasanain, if you go back one slide, this is a series of works before he developed his signature style, the Baghdadiyat style, which drew on ancient themes. He did a series of works on prostitutes in Baghdad in the early 1940s. This is 1943. And the theme was women waiting, and, which in Arabic was Nisaf al-Intidar. And the idea behind it was that it was a wider reflection on how in society women were always waiting for men. Whether it was women waiting to get married, or women waiting for their father's permission to do something. And he said that it's very similar to the situation of prostitutes, which are literally waiting for men, waiting for male customers. And to have social commentary on the status of urban women in Middle Eastern art in the 1940s was something very surprising for me to see, and especially something that extends beyond just the literal of the kind of, you know, what was going on in Baghdad at the time.
Jawad was a humanist, and he really cared about people. He was asked even by Abbas Sarraf, who interviewed him extensively for his PhD dissertation at the time, if, you know, because some of his work, particularly the Nasb al-Harriya, you know, could be considered political, and Jawad would say no. He didn't care about politics, he cared about people. It was always about the people.
And if you look at the same period, yes, it's very women focused. It's about elevating the Falaha and, you know, turning her into kind of a national hero and a symbol, but very little, I would say, social criticism, which is the kind of area that Jawad is tapping into here, which is, for me, very interesting. And it was obviously a series that meant a lot to him, because he did more than one painting on it. He gave them to some of his closest friends, and he wrote about it extensively. So yeah, I thought that was an interesting
Indeed, Jawad, he is very well-known critique of the Iraqi society, and he believed that so many people, they were hating him because of his critique. The first speech that he addressed in the establishment of Baghdad Group was all about the test of art with the Iraqi population, and it was not most of his paintings, especially this expressive style paintings, it's a sort of a critique to some social phenomena that existing in the Baghdadi community.
So in 1951, him and Shakir Hassan al-Said, who was actually a student in the Art Institute, formed the Baghdad Group for Modern Art, which was an incredibly important moment of moving forward from the Rawad group, which was the Society Primitive by Fayed Hassan, into a mature time of thinking about aesthetics. So it's no longer just about, you know, what you see, but it's about coining specific aesthetics. And they wrote the manifesto, which, you know, sort of, in fact, this painting of the Caliph's Majlis al-Khalifa, which was a direct sort of drawing from Maqamat al-Hariri that were sort of found and illustrated in a French journal in the 40s that to the Iraqi artist and to Jewad Selim specifically was the mediation between that past and the future. They thought of Yahya al-Wasiti, who was the painter of Maqamat al-Hariri. And Maqamat al-Hariri, we can't talk about al-Wasiti as an illustrator. He really was interpreting with a lot of freedom the text that was the sort of the short stories in the anthology. They thought about Yahya al-Wasiti as an extension from a Sumerian heritage into the modern. And so to them, this was their legacy and, you know, moving forward. And that, of course, because as Dr. Hasanain was saying, the naturalist style of painting, and particularly because the officers, the Ottoman officers like Abdul Qadir al-Rassam, who came back, trained in military academies in Istanbul, did naturalist and you know, landscapes. And so that became very accepted and very popular. So abstract, for example, and Jamaat Baghdad, the Baghdad Group for Modern Art, as they formed, and both even Jawad and Shakir sort of progressed through to abstraction based on the theories that they were formulating, and the new aesthetics like the Hilaliyat of the Baghdadiyat style, that was not accepted or not understood by the people. So in fact, in that speech that Dr. Hasanain is referring to, he talked about this one journalist who called these artists enemy of the people, because, you know, you're doing strange things that the people don't understand. So yes, Jawad was very concerned about educating the taste, introducing, he cared a lot about the public. It wasn't just him making art for himself. He wanted the people to understand the art that he was making.
And as mentioned by Dr. Nada, Hilaliyat, we can see in each single paintings of this Baghdadiyat group of Jawad that have been created mainly in the 50s, and they are so far 36 paintings only of all the legacy of Jewad Selim. The Hilal, the crescents that you will see it everywhere, through you know, the circle of the faces, through the slice of the watermelon, through so many forms have been used and introduced in these paintings. These are, I think, maybe Dr. Nada would agree with me, that the most important legacy and the most important
Most mature experiment
most mature experiment
Iraqi
of Jawad
aesthetics.
and the Baghdad group of
And it combines the Sumerian, I mean, you know, think about the almond eyes, combines the Sumerian with the Islamic and creates new patterns through these geometrical shapes. So now the surface actually becomes a pattern, and, you know, like an arabesque, while it's still telling a story.
And just to expand on that, because at the same time that Jawad was doing these paintings, he was also sculpting. And his sculpture is almost entirely abstract. So this is the front cover of the book, and this is a sculpture called Mother and Child. And these were produced right after he'd come back from London. And in London he studied at Slade, where he was inspired by the modern British sculptures that were working in the 1930s and 40s in the UK, in particular artists like Henry Moore and Lynn Chadwick. And it's really interesting to see how Jawad produced a body of work that was influenced by British sculptures, but also recognizing that British sculptures were influenced by ancient Mesopotamian sculpture. So for him, it wasn't the flow of influence wasn't just from A to B, it was cyclical. He knew that Henry Moore spent hours and hours sitting in the British Museum looking at Assyrian and Babylonian sculptures, and they informed his use of crescents and flowing shapes. And Jawad borrowed from both. So it's really interesting that it wasn't just, you know, I studied at Slade in the UK, I was inspired by Henry Moore, and I carried that into my sculpture. He recognizes the cyclical nature and the kind of back and forth conversation between Western artists and all of the incredible ancient Mesopotamian and Eastern art they were exposed to in different museums. And just to show you another internal art, this is an incredible, I'll call it like a public sculptural installation that he exhibited at the at a international fair in Damascus in the 50s, and where he's taken the two crescents and he's called them Tigris and Euphrates. So he's basically interpreted them as two rivers, and here he's interpreted them as a kind of maternal symbol. So he took these kind of ancient symbols and then and basically bent them to his will. And one of his most important sculptures, which is in the center there, the monument to the unknown political prisoner, was conceived as a huge public commission to basically as a commentary on, you know, every city has a monument to an unknown soldier that died in a war. This was for an unknown political prisoner. This was exhibited at the Tate in 1952, making Jawad perhaps one of the first Middle Eastern artists who ever exhibited at the Tate.
It was part of a competition.
It was part of a competition.
He got an honorable mention.
He got an honorable mention.
£50,
Yeah.
yes, as well. Yeah, that was a lot of money, though.
£5. But it's incredible that at the same time as he was painting, you know, watermelon sellers and henna knights, he was doing this incredibly sophisticated abstract sculpture that if you didn't have Jawad's signature on it, you would thought was made by an English artist in the 1940s in London. So he managed to juggle all these different identities in one mind. Which is
I would say actually what Jawad did is he digested everything that he saw and studied, and it resulted into new sort of ideas that reflected not only the age, because he was very interested in what the everyone else was doing around, but also it reflected a specific belief that he understood as expressing an Iraqi identity. So we're, do we have an hour or 45 minutes? I'm sorry? 45? Yeah, so okay, so we now can, we're out of time, basically, but we can take few minutes. I mean, who can talk about Jawad in 45 minutes? We can open it up to the floor, you know, if you have any questions or any comments.
Of course, it's incredible work to work on a legend like Jewad Selim, getting this massive book about him. But I have a notes about the book Raisonné, especially the last 5 years, and it's all coming in English. Did you thought about making this book in Arabic?
It's your job as a name.
And if not, what the difficulties, because I'm a publisher also, what difficulties you think that it's a barrier between making this fascinating book in Arabic as Jewad Selim Arabic?
Quality publishing in Arabic?
No, it needs to be done. So before Hasanain answers, I approached the problem from an opposite direction. I'm Iranian, I don't speak Arabic and I don't read Arabic. So I found it very, very hard to educate myself because all of the books are out of print, old Arabic publications. Even though Nada's done an amazing job of digitizing them, for me it was very difficult to learn a new language just to access the thing. So I looked at the opposite one. I was like, let's create an English language resource for everyone to tap into Jewad Selim. But Hasanain, this is one of your responsibilities. Yes, it should be published in Arabic. Yeah.
Exactly. We as Ibrahimi Collection, indeed, we published 4 books and the 5th one to document and archive the Iraqi modern art in Arabic language. Indeed, we did it bilingual. Even the English speaker, they can read and understand, because for the articles we did an abstract in English, and for the details of the artworks it's in English, but the main articles are in Arabic. The biographies are in Arabic. But in our website we have it in English. So for the researcher whom they do not speak Arabic, they can still enjoy the Arabic version, and they can get a good extract out of it. Frankly speaking, the main issue of these catalogue raisonné is the huge research you need to do and the fund. It costs a lot, frankly speaking. Publishing with a publishing house like Skira or Tashin, you are talking about 100,000 USD only for printing and distribution. Apart of all, the design, and not the design, but the collecting, verifying the artworks, authenticating them, it's a hell of work. I think Nima and the state of the artist of Jewad Selim, they were working since more than 3 years on a direct, I would say, project, a part of the archive that had been collected since decades. So it's not easy issuing and publishing Catalogue Raisonné.
True.
But for sure, what you are saying is very valid, and we believe on that. We did, from our part, 4 books in Arabic and 1 book in English. But still, I think the others should help too.
But the main reason why it's in English is because we actually need to have this knowledge worldwide. People in Iraq, there are a lot of smaller books here and there. Jabra wrote, Shakir Hassan wrote on Jawad. But to actually sort of try to decolonize the canon of art history, we need this in English as well. So I understand that we should have it in Arabic, but for different reasons, we're publishing in English first. The market, demands that.
But why didn't you come and approach us after? Because if you're a publisher, then you could get involved
We
with
can
that.
talk with them.
I suffer from the same reasons, but what I'm thinking about it is that most of the materials is in Arabic, and you spend a lot of time to translate it and a lot of time even to interpret it in the right way. I find that you did also the 90% of the job, so the 10% I believe it will be just make the second copy or the second version when it is in Arabic. This is why it is in Arabic. I am sure Iraqi generations, or Arab generations, especially the new generations, they need it in Arabic.
Absolutely.
Because we understand Jewad Selim's script, handwriting, more than reading it, translated from Arabic to English.
I 100% agree with you. And I would add one little point, that 40% of Jewad Selim's diaries were also in English, which is an amazing thing, because we've read his English, which was actually not that bad. So it's beautiful that he also had those 2 languages in his mind. He was thinking in both languages, and in French as well.
Anyway, thank you so much for such an effort, and hopefully we can see it in Arabic in any way.
And I'm happy to say, a little bit of advertising, there is an exhibition that will open in June 21st at BART, but then we'll come to NYU Abu Dhabi, and then we'll come to Madhaf on Jamaat Baghdad al-Fann al-Hadith, their legacy and their impact. And a lot of those works are going to be in it, so you get to see them live. There was a question?
Thank you, that was really informative. I don't know so much about this artist, so I was wondering where can one see his works? So you said in June it'll come to Abu Dhabi?
Well, the exhibition will, that I'm curating, which is on the group that he co-founded, will come to Abu Dhabi. But if some of these works are in Bergin Foundation collection, the Art Foundation, and they are at Madhaf Arab Museum of Modern Art. I mean, just to name few here in the region. And then Dr. Hasanain also has in the Ibrahimi Collection in Amman and in Baghdad. So, I mean, those are the main places where you can see them, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, all of you.
Thank you, Hannah.
So thank you very much, everyone, for. Oh, you have a question?
No, I just want to repeat that the book is available for anyone to get it at Jamil shop.
Yeah, just opposite.
Yeah, opposite the bridge. And Nima, would you be kind enough to come with us to sign it?
Sure, yeah. Anyone who wants one, yeah, definitely.
I want one. Thank you all. I know how much